The Krusty Krab, home of the Krabby Patty. The most renowned fast food in all of Bikini Bottom thanks to its secret formula. No sane life form would ever deny the soul-lifting taste of this undersea treat. So renowned that the Krabby Patty has begun attracting visitors from beyond not just Bikini Bottom, but even beyond the sea itself. Ooh, what's this? It seems we have found another strange traveler passing by. Certainly not a sea creature from the looks of it.
Oh boy, 3 a.m. I can't wait to finally try some Krabby Patties. Huh?
Oh, hi there. Didn't see you coming up just now. I also just arrived in Bikini Bottom, and I knew the very first thing I needed to do was to try this town's signature treat, which I got to see only on television until now. Unfortunately, it seems I've arrived a bit too late because boy, it is already crowded in there. Man, I never thought I'd live to see the day when the Krusty Krab becomes a tourist trap. Though, I imagine Mr. Krabs is having quite the field day right now.
Money, 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 money.
Wait, oh my, where are my manners? Hi, I am T. Lawrence. I like to explore different worlds and universes of various media that I enjoy. And for my first stop, I figured Bikini Bottom, and more broadly, the undersea world of SpongeBob would be a great stepping stone for the journey. If you've been following my channel for some time now, you've noticed how I'm a bit too obsessed with SpongeBob, sparing no opportunities to insert references and gags in my videos, going so far as to even voicing some characters myself.
The Hell Taker? What the? Patrick, this is not. Oh, god damn it. Beggars can't be choosers. Can you take hats in a dignified and sophisticated manner?
But this only shows how prevalent this silly cartoon about a silly sea sponge has become. Because who doesn't like SpongeBob? The affable square fellow who's the very fry cook currently serving up those scrumptious and mouth-watering patties. With his overwhelming positive energy and iconic laugh, it is hard not to recognize him anywhere, with televisions all across the world airing him in their own dubs.
Ja przecież nie jestem
Zamknij się, ty przeciętny klarnecisto.
Przeciętny?
It's amazing how despite our cultural and linguistic differences, this show has managed to bring people from all around the world together, and it's not hard to see why. Most of us grew up with him, seeing SpongeBob on television, the big screen, and even some of our video games. Even the show's theme song has practically become the childhood anthem for many. Which then begs a question. What makes SpongeBob so iconic in the current pop culture zeitgeist? Just how did a children's show about a silly sea sponge become so monumental and continues to stand the test of time to this day? How is it that even grown adults like myself continue to enjoy the show? The third question is especially compelling because I remember a lot of parents, including my own, often complaining and seething about SpongeBob, especially his laugh.
Please, make it stop. It's a squeaking of the hideous boots.
Because apparently anything that doesn't fit into their quote-unquote grown-up or adult values, whatever the hell that means, is automatically dismissed. Which is honestly just another way of saying,
I'm just a dull and boring person with nothing interesting going on in my life.
The truth is that SpongeBob is more than just a silly cartoon about a sea sponge living in Bikini Bottom. It is so much more, which is one reason why those same children back then who are now adults still continue to enjoy it just as much. And today we will discuss and find out why. And while we're at it, enjoy the speed paint of me starting a band with SpongeBob and our silly little crew of goofballs. The finished piece will be shown at the end. Now, SpongeBob SquarePants.
SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants!
Unlike many other cartoons of the 2000s, SpongeBob has stood the test of time by continuing to be aired to this day with continuous new seasons, as well as having been permeated into everyday pop culture, with many of its references instantly recognized in all corners of the internet. For that, SpongeBob is certainly one of the most renowned cartoons to have existed in our generation. In fact, it is so monumental that I don't think there will ever be another cartoon like it ever again. As bold as this may sound, I think SpongeBob may even live up to the likes of The Simpsons. And it isn't just silly entertainment that makes SpongeBob so great. It isn't just witty humor and subtle adult jokes.
Look, doubloons! Don't drop them.
It isn't just the live-action skits.
Huh? What's this? My pencil!
And no, it isn't Tom Kenny being exposed by King Neptune.
Behold!
Whoopsie.
And not even the various parody works such as all the YouTube poop edits.
Hey, watch where you're swinging that. SpongeBob, be careful with.
Damn. Rest in peace, future generations of Squidwards. Still, whereas I outgrew most cartoons from my younger days, SpongeBob is a strange case where I continue to watch it and even appreciate it more and more as I grew older. And for a long time, I struggled to figure out why. Sure, I did start understanding the hidden jokes better, but SpongeBob wasn't the only cartoon of its kind. Something about this show gave me joy and comfort, especially during the really difficult times growing up. Simply watching SpongeBob laughing at the dumbest things and having this childlike curiosity allowed me to escape the mundane lows of everyday life. From the creative yet absurdist elements of the undersea world, the occasional Odyssey-like adventures outside Bikini Bottom, the quirky gags and humor, and of course, the compelling cast of characters, all with their own unique personalities, goals, and challenges. Its overall goofy nature showed me how life doesn't have to be so serious and cutthroat, and that it's okay to laugh and have fun. And then, it finally hit me. Before we proceed to the secret formula, however, we must first explore the world of SpongeBob. After all, we are in Bikini Bottom right now. It's too good of an opportunity not to. Somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, underneath this lonely island, is a small town called Bikini Bottom, whose population is roughly around 500 inhabitants, though that number does seem to fluctuate every now and then. The specific geographic coordinates of Bikini Bottom aren't confirmed, but it is speculated to be somewhere near Bikini Atoll, which is a coral reef in the Marshall Islands. The reef also served as a nuclear testing site for the US military back in the 40s and 50s. And I think the morbid joke is that the radiation from all the nuclear testing resulted in the semi-anthropomorphic sea creatures we see in the show. Yeah. Though, as opposed to anything grotesque or revolting, such as the radioactively mutated beings of Fallout, Bikini Bottom actually appears to be quite the thriving community of sea creatures, who all live not too differently from those on the surface. In fact, they're a bit too human-like. Unlike other undersea-themed shows, such as Flipper and Lopaka, where sea creatures retain their marine life traits and only act human, in the world of SpongeBob, the creatures quote-unquote walk and dress like any of us. We even see infrastructure such as streets, houses, restaurants, schools, hospitals, skyscrapers, and more. Though they do retain their aquatic themes in creative ways, such as pipes, which are presumably sunken ship parts, as well as other goofy objects such as an anchor, a lobster trap, a rock, and of course, a pineapple. Though certain things that do raise an eyebrow are physics-defying phenomenon, such as bodies of water like Goo Lagoon, even though you're already underwater, as well as the ability to make fire, even though again, you're underwater.
Hey, if we're underwater, how could there be?
But alas, we're not going to nitpick about physics violation of a silly children's show. SpongeBob is not some David Attenborough nature documentary, so I digress. In fact, even the show itself is aware of these inconsistencies and unrealism, which makes it that much more entertaining. It does not take itself too seriously and satirizes these unrealistic elements, resulting in all the hilarious and creative gags just like these.
What's a gorilla doing underwater in the first place?
Besides, maybe all the nuclear testing resulted in some strange changes in the ecosystem. Kinda like Stalker. All that said, the goofy and creative nature of the undersea setting is just as well reflected by the nautical adventures of the folks of Bikini Bottom. Among them is SpongeBob SquarePants, the square sea sponge who lives in an undersea pineapple, works as a fry cook at the Krusty Krab, and loves jellyfishing with his sea star best friend, Patrick Star. But just what is so remarkable about this affable yet goofy sea sponge? He's no superhero with special powers like Superman. He's no genius inventor like Phineas and Ferb. Nor is he necessarily the funniest cartoon character either. In fact, if we take away all the undersea and fantastical elements of the show, SpongeBob, or at the very least the life he lives, isn't super remarkable. Okay, please, just hear me out. Because let's be real for a moment. The guy works really long hours at a fast food joint as a fry cook, under an absolute cheapskate of a boss in the form of Mr. Krabs, and earning chump changes for pay. In fact, SpongeBob gets consistently taken advantage of by his manager, never earning any raise, any promotion, or any form of career progression at all. I know working in fast food isn't supposed to be easy or pleasant, but come on, this is even worse than one of those black companies we hear about in Japan. Mr. Krabs is lucky that he set up shop under the ocean because if he was on the surface, he would be violating a lot of labor protection laws. But what about SpongeBob's personal life outside of work? Well, even that isn't quite stellar. For one, no matter how many damn attempts, the guy consistently fails his driving tests, having yet to earn his license, which is a crucial step towards proper adulthood. And despite being a young adult, he's consistently looked down upon and underestimated by his peers. which was the real sticking point in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, when Mr. Krabs chose Squidward over him for the new managerial position. But I mean, in this case, I can't exactly blame Mr. Krabs because just look at the way SpongeBob acts and behaves. It's not wrong to call him a bit of a kid and a goofball. After all, as the show's creator Stephen Hillenburg put it, SpongeBob is an adult with a childlike personality. Therefore, from working long hours at a dead-end and underpaid job, not being respected by his peers, and overall being a nobody, SpongeBob's life is actually quite mediocre. Well, actually, on second thought, SpongeBob does appear to own a home, which seems to be quite the impossible task these days, especially for younger folks. So I guess he has that going for him. But it makes me wonder how he's able to afford one by working in fast food. Well, damn, maybe I should move to a pineapple down to Bikini Bottom. Even so, overall, SpongeBob's life leaves a lot to be desired. So after all that dunking on our favorite sea sponge, just what makes SpongeBob so appealing? Why is it that despite living such an unremarkable life on the surface, many of us, including myself, love and even look up to this goofy sea sponge? And this is a question I struggled to answer for a long time. Until now. When you think of SpongeBob, how do you picture him? What are the traits that come to your mind? He's always smiling, laughing, and jovial. And how could that possibly be? Just how is it that despite these unremarkable conditions, SpongeBob still seems to be genuinely happy? Well, for one, despite working long hours and being underpaid, working as a fry cook at the Krusty Krab is a job that SpongeBob genuinely enjoys. In fact, that's been his dream job, as shown by the pilot episode Help Wanted. And after proving himself to Mr. Krabs by obtaining a hydrodynamic spatula with port and starboard attachments and a turbo drive, SpongeBob has become a quintessential part of the Krusty Krab, whose Krabby Patties would not be the same without his magnificent fry cooking skills. In fact, as shown in some episodes, the Krusty Krab would really struggle without the guy. I mean, who else is gonna cook up those patties? Squidward?
That's not how you're supposed to flip it.
Sure, SpongeBob may not be working in some Fortune 500 company with a six-figure salary, nor is he a YouTuber with millions of subs living in a mansion. But that's okay, because SpongeBob is content living a modest life doing what he truly loves, which is being a fry cook for the Krusty Krab. And who are we to judge the guy? That said, however, passion alone is not enough, as SpongeBob still faces a lot of hurdles in his life. Still, SpongeBob does not let any of it stop him and endures through it all, for he is the eternal optimist and believes in himself. I know that sounds extremely corny, but the truth is that outlook and attitude play pivotal roles in how one's life turns out. Which is why two people who are in very different circumstances, yet have drastically different outlooks on life, can turn out very differently. This is clearly shown by the contrasting personalities of SpongeBob and Squidward, whose lives aren't actually that different from each other. Though, we'll cover Squidward later. Whenever SpongeBob faces adversity, even those with seemingly impossible odds, he always maintains a can-do and optimistic mindset, sometimes even towards delusional levels. But even a tinge of delusion is what allows SpongeBob to succeed because, while everyone else would have just given up, he's still pushing hard until he ultimately makes it. And all of this is even more impressive when you remember the fact that once again, SpongeBob isn't anyone special. He is neither the strongest, the smartest, nor the most charismatic being in town. On the contrary, he's actually physically quite weak, a bit of a nutcase, and even a weenie.
Listen, kid, I think you'd be more comfortable over at that place.
Weenie Hut Juniors? Are you saying I belong at Weenie Hut Juniors?
But once again, SpongeBob does not let any of it stop him, and with a slight dose of self-delusion, SpongeBob is the one that enjoys sweet victory. Despite being underestimated by Mr. Krabs and tasked with a seemingly impossible objective, SpongeBob manages to obtain the hydrodynamic spatula, satiate the hangry meeping anchovies, and finally get hired as a fry cook for the Krusty Krab. Despite needing to travel impossible distances by foot, weather through storms, and endure Squidward's constant mauling and complaining, SpongeBob's tenacity and unconventional methods manage to pull both of them through and finally deliver the pizza to that absolute piece of Despite being laughed at by the entire town, SpongeBob continues to work towards a solution that would finally allow him to fly with the jellyfish until eventually, a happy accident turns his pants into a makeshift blimp, and he proves everyone wrong. Despite being always dogged on by Squidward, SpongeBob still helps him in his hour of need by whipping the marching band into shape before performing Sweet Victory in the Bubble Bowl, in what is perhaps the greatest episode ever. And of course, despite being dismissed by everyone, including King Neptune, as some dumb kid, SpongeBob accepts the challenge of returning Neptune's crown from Shell City, and after facing bubble-hating gangsters at the Thug Tug, trekking through the abyss full of hideous monsters, and surviving a bloodthirsty bounty hunter sent by Plankton. SpongeBob and Patrick make it to Shell City before ultimately riding the Hasselhoff back to Bikini Bottom with Neptune's crown, and eat it all right for some dumb goofball. In the end, the ones who ultimately succeed are not the strongest nor the smartest, but the ones who have the right attitude and stick it out until they make it. So yes, SpongeBob may live an unremarkable life, but he still manages to make remarkable accomplishments, all thanks to his remarkable personality. He does not let his deficiencies stop him from being the best he can be and living life to the fullest. He does not let the mundane circumstances of his life from letting his creativity and imaginations run wild, even from the most inconsequential things he comes across, such as an empty cardboard box. He does not let toxic shame and bullying from his peers from being authentically himself. And for these reasons, SpongeBob is genuinely happy with his life, which already puts him a hell of a lot farther than most people. Not just in Bikini Bottom, but the whole world. And certainly farther than his neighbor next door. Unlike his next door neighbor, Squidward Tentacles does not work in the Krusty Krab because he wants to. He's only there to pay the bills, doing just the bare minimum to get by. Let's see. Inattentive, impatient, a glazed look in the eyes. Just look carefully at the button reading, "I really wish I weren't here right now." But who can blame him? Working in fast food can be quite the soul-sucking experience. Besides, Squidward's true dream is to become a famous clarinet player. When he's not working his day job at the Krusty Krab, Squidward practices his clarinet in hopes of one day achieving his big break in the industry and seeing his name on various magazines and billboards as he travels around the world on his performance tours. Yet, none of that is yet to be realized. Despite his efforts, Squidward is constantly rejected, looked down upon, and stands in the shadows of his rivals like Squilliam Fancyson. But until he catches his big break, Squidward still finds himself working at his day job at the Krusty Krab. And as time keeps passing by, so does Squidward's big dream, seeming more and more like a distant fantasy. As a result, Squidward has become cynical and jaded, slowly losing faith and hope in his dreams. He's become self-absorbed, only caring about himself in a world he increasingly views from an antagonistic lens, as one that's actively out to get him. Overall, Squidward has become a miserable shelf of his ideal self, now barely scraping by just for a chump change as a cashier. Wow, that got dark. But hang on just a second, because is it really so simple as failing to achieve his dreams that made Squidward such a depressive being? Or perhaps there is something more to this. Let's look back at SpongeBob. Like Squidward, SpongeBob also works at the same dead-end job at the Krusty Krab, earns chump changes for pay, is constantly looked down upon and made fun of. Yet, unlike Squidward, SpongeBob does not let any of that stop him, and is always serving up some smiles. And even if SpongeBob does not have grandiose or ambitious dreams like Squidward, there are many times when SpongeBob is still faced with grandiose and ambitious endeavors, such as performing at the Bubble Bowl, or returning Neptune's crown from Shell City. And he manages to conquer through it all. Whereas Squidward easily calls it quits and throws in the towel, SpongeBob on the other hand is always determined and keeps going until he makes it, unafraid of failure. Therefore, what truly differentiates Squidward and SpongeBob is not necessarily their circumstances, nor even their external ambitions, but rather within them. In other words, SpongeBob is just an inherently positive bloomer, whereas Squidward is an inherently negative doomer. All of that being said, however, the point here is not so simple as SpongeBob good and Squidward bad. Not at all, because the truth is that Squidward and SpongeBob both represent parts of us, especially as we grow older. A lot of us start off as SpongeBob as children. We're joyful and excited about the world, eager to explore everything around us. We're not burdened with any responsibilities or worries, allowing us to really enjoy life at the moment. We're optimistic and hopeful, feeling like we can conquer anything we come across. Overall, life feels like a fun and exciting adventure. But as we grow up, all of that begins to chip away as the harsh realities of adulthood sets in, such as putting up with our crappy bosses at our jobs, dealing with scummy insurance companies, paying skyrocketing bills such as rent, power, utilities, and etc., chronic health issues as we reach our middle ages, shame for being our authentic selves and pressure to fit in with the rest of the group, as in, to be more normal. And most of us deal with all this for roughly 40 years until by the time you retire, and even that's a big if nowadays, you're already old, frail, and too tired to really do most things anymore.
We do that for 40 years and then we die.
So yeah, adulthood sucks in many ways. Trust me, it really does. Therefore, given all of this, it's no wonder Squidward is the way he is. In fact, the prevailing theme I notice in many SpongeBob-related corners of the internet is how Squidward becomes much more relatable when watching the show as an adult. Because the sad truth is that Squidward's life represents the experiences of many adults today who are just as tired, cynical, and jaded as he is. Chances are, you're probably surrounded by them. At your workplace, grocery stores, gas stations, fast food joints, you know it. Chances are, you are probably a Squidward. And I don't blame you for that. I'd wager a lot of you wish you could travel back in time and relive your joyful childhood, free from your harsher, mundane adult life. A time where you could be more like SpongeBob. But do we have to travel back in time and revert to a kid again to be like SpongeBob? Is it perhaps possible to still be like SpongeBob even after growing out of your childhood? Is it perhaps possible for us to maintain our jovial, optimistic, and positive attitude even into adulthood? Yes. Yes, we can. Okay, I know that was a little anticlimactic, but hear me out. Sure, adult life sucks for many valid reasons, but I also contest this idea that becoming a Squidward is an inevitability. Don't get me wrong, life is hard. It's really, really hard, and it is not some fairy tale paradise. And for you younger viewers watching this, it will only get harder. So buckle up, kiddos. That said, it is still very much possible to be like SpongeBob as an adult. Because once again, SpongeBob's life is not too different from Squidward's. Yet through it all, SpongeBob still manages to find happiness and live life to the fullest. And this is not some unrealistic cartoon logic either, because as much as I've seen many Squidwards in my life, I've also seen some SpongeBobs as well. People who work tough jobs yet still maintain an upbeat attitude with a smile. People who live modestly yet still find joy in the most simple things in their lives. People whose default view of life is not one that's half empty, but half full. Just because you become an adult does not mean you're doomed to become some boring and miserable shell of your younger self. Even as an adult, you can still be like SpongeBob and embrace your inner child by enjoying what you're truly passionate about and love. Even as an adult, you can still find genuine happiness, as happiness is ultimately a state of mind, not a goal achieved by external factors. And remember, SpongeBob is also an adult, not a child. For that, what ultimately stops Squidward from becoming successful and happy is himself. And when I say himself, I don't mean his artistic talents, because let me tell you, Squidward's actually not a bad artist. I know, what a shocker, right? Sure, he may not be the greatest artist of the world, but some snippets of his artwork in various episodes show that he does show potential. If you want to know more about Squidward's hidden artistic talents, check out this video by Solar Sands, which dissects whether Squidward is truly a bad artist or not. In any case, look at this gallery. The guy really knows how to paint and sculpt. The themes are a bit self-centered and egotistical, but still, Squidward clearly isn't a bad artist by any means. But therein lies the problem, because despite Squidward's artistic potential, the part within him that stops him is his attitude. He holds an inflated ego, diluted with grandeur, extremely entitled, and cannot handle any criticism. In fact, he's so insecure and envious, going so far as to undermine others just to feel good about himself, like he did to SpongeBob in his art class. Which, come on Squiddy, uncool bro. In any case, Mr. Tentacles is clearly his own worst enemy. That said, let's not be too harsh on Squidward. Maybe he grew up in a broken home with neglectful parents. Maybe he was bullied by Squilliam Fancy Son back in high school. Maybe the constant rejections has withered away his hopes. Life has clearly chewed him up and spit him out like a used gum. Be that as it may, while we should avoid becoming like Squidward, nobody should be stigmatized for becoming like him either. In fact, I somewhat empathize with him because guess what? I've been somewhat of a Squidward myself. There were many times in my life where I've been bitter and cynical due to many things not working out. Maybe that's why my Squidward impressions are so spot on. Furthermore, just to give Squidward a sliver of credit, he's not a complete jerk either, as he has exhibited some level of kindness and empathy, most notable being the pizza delivery episode, where he decks that absolute customer on the house for making SpongeBob cry. And to that I say, well done, Mr. Tentacles! If only we could see more of that. And on the flip side, SpongeBob shouldn't be too glorified either. By no means is he perfect, and he has his downsides as well, such as his naivete and tendency to get into trouble. As shown in the Ripped Pants episode, being a goofball can only take you so far. Be true to yourself and don't miss your chance, but also don't end up like the fool who ripped his pants. Boy, that song hits really hard. Still, if I had to choose between Squidward or SpongeBob, I would definitely choose the latter. Not only does SpongeBob manage to accomplish much more than Squidward, he also experiences something that Squidward will probably never experience. Something many of us yearn for deep down, yet too afraid to admit it, which is genuine happiness and content with his life. Because do you really want to be a Squidward for the rest of your life? Do you want to remain this perpetually cynical, jaded, and miserable being who had potential to do so much more, yet still succumb to his own despair and hopelessness? Well, let me tell you, I sure as hell don't. I'm sick of being a Squidward. I'd like to have more positivity, optimism, and happiness in my life. I don't just want to survive, but also create and add something to this world. Yes, life is not easy, and the world is not sunshine and rainbows. But you can still be happy and make something out of it. For how you make your life is still ultimately up to you. After all, as the law of attraction shows, you become what you think about. So try to think and be more like SpongeBob. Because remember, no employee wants to be a Squidward. And to hell with all these boring adults who tell you to quote-unquote act your age. To stop playing video games and watch sports like real men should. To stop pursuing your passions and get a real job like everyone else. And to conform and be superficially boring just like them. You're never too old to blow bubbles. You're never too old to collect silly toys. You're never too old to play silly video games. You're never too old to dress up in silly costumes. You're never too old to watch and draw silly cartoons. You're never too old to act like a silly goofball. Just the other day, I decided to bike outside with an Ushanka hat in the middle of summer. Why? Because I felt silly and rolled with it. Did I get some weird stares from people? Sure, from one dude. But who the hell cares? SpongeBob sure as hell wouldn't, and in fact would actually ride along with me. Life's too short and fragile to be dictated by someone else's dogma anyways. So go out there and be a kid like SpongeBob. Be creative and imaginative. Embrace the weird in you and go all out. Live your life and enjoy to the fullest, just like SpongeBob.
A good friend of mine once told me that just because people treat you like a villain, or an ogre, or just some loser, it doesn't mean you are one. The thing that matters most is what you think of yourself. If there's something you really want, or someone you really want to be, then the only person standing in your way is you.
Unlike many other children's shows, which we usually grow out of, SpongeBob has proved itself to grow beyond just a children's show and become an entire cultural phenomenon that has defined our entire generation. And it would not have reached its monumental heights without the talent and passion that went into it. Therefore, I cannot in good conscience wrap this up, not without highlighting the brilliant people behind the scenes, such as the talented voicing cast of the likes of Tom Kenny and Mr. Lawrence. And no, we are not related. And of course, the man himself, Stephen Hillenburg. For one, the characters of SpongeBob would not be so iconic without the iconic people voicing them. Tom Kenny's eccentric and quirky persona, thanks to his time as a stand-up comedian, is clearly reflected by SpongeBob's own eccentric and quirky persona. And Mr. Lawrence's charming and witty humor is clearly projected by Plankton's own sassy and smart-ass tendencies, and so much more. But of course, all of these talented people would not have come together without the man behind it all, Stephen Hillenburg. Stephen Hillenburg originally graduated with a marine science degree, and went on to work as a marine science educator for the Orange County Marine Institute. But as much as he was passionate about marine life, Hillenburg was just as passionate about art as well, having drawn from a young age. Yet, he initially did not pursue it as a degree, believing he wouldn't be able to make a career out of it. Still, the artist within him could not be ignored, and eventually, Hillenburg realized his true path was in art. While working at the Marine Institute teaching children, Stephen Hillenburg also worked on some side gigs as an artist. One of his notable works was a comic about animal life of tidal pools, called The Inner Tidal Zone, which featured anthropomorphic forms of sea life. One of the characters of the comic is a realistic sea sponge called Bob the Sponge, which would go on to inspire the character of SpongeBob. Eventually, Hillenburg would take the plunge and enroll in CalArts' experimental animation program in 1989, where he learned the trade for 3 years before graduating in 1992 with a Master of Fine Arts in Experimental Animation. After working on various other media, including Rocko's Modern Life, Stephen Hillenburg would go on to finally create his own series in the name of SpongeBob SquarePants, whose themes were inspired by his background in marine biology. Even though he left marine biology, Hillenburg felt rewarded that his two passions came together, and that his previous career wasn't a complete waste of time. SpongeBob SquarePants would officially air on July 17, 1999, as Nickelodeon's first original Saturday morning cartoon. Little did Hillenburg know how much of an impact it would have, as the show was an instant hit and would go on to become a household favorite, even appealing towards adults. And to this day, SpongeBob remains the most renowned cartoon for children around the globe. Sadly, Stephen Hillenburg would not be able to work on the show forever, as on 2017, he announced his diagnosis of ALS, a rare but terminal neurodegenerative disease with no known cure. Though he continued to work on the show, the disease ultimately caught up to him, and on November 26, 2018, Stephen Hillenburg passed away at the age of 57. Although he's passed away, a part of Stephen Hillenburg will always remain with us. He created something that brought so much joy to countless children around the world and even beyond. Hillenburg did not create SpongeBob with the intention of making the greatest cartoon show ever. He just wanted to make a funny animated series about ocean life, from the eyes of a goofy sea sponge. But by combining the two things he absolutely loved, animation and ocean life, he managed to create something great and defined our entire childhoods. And for that, Hillenburg's legacy goes beyond just SpongeBob, also serving as huge inspiration for many artists, including myself. Stephen Hillenburg is a big reason why I'm so passionate about art and storytelling, which is why as I've grown older, I also began viewing him as a role model. He has taught me to stay true to myself, and to never be ashamed of my true passions. He has taught me to always keep my art dreams alive, and to be fearless in its pursuit. He has taught me that with creativity and imagination, anything is possible. For that, I really wish I could have met Stephen, and thank him for bringing so much joy to my childhood and inspiring my own creative journey. So thank you, Stephen Hillenburg. And that is how SpongeBob and Stephen Hillenburg inspire us all. Like SpongeBob, you're never too old to be a kid and enjoy your life to the fullest. Age is just a number, and everyone is capable of pursuing what they are truly passionate about and love. Like Stephen Hillenburg, it's never too unrealistic to pursue your dreams. Despite starting off his career in marine sciences, Hillenburg still managed to break through the animation industry and create SpongeBob in his late 30s. And it's never too late for you either. And finally, here's the finished piece of the Band Geeks crossover episode. What's better than just SpongeBob or Helltaker? Both of them collaborating together. A goofy crossover many may not have expected, but one you may need. Does it make sense? Probably not. Is it silly as hell and maybe even cringe? Probably. But who cares? I love it and that's all that matters. So that finally wraps it up, ladies and gentlefish. No matter who you are, you only get to be a kid for so long. So go out there and have some fun, kiddos.
Order 76 for Mr. Lawrence. A double Krabby Patty Deluxe with no onions, no pickles, and a triple Krabby Supreme with extra fries.
Oh boy, it's finally here.
Now if you would excuse me, I'm gonna go enjoy my Krabby Patty.
Wait a minute, if we're underwater, how the hell are you able to breathe without a suit?
Oh, well, you see, Capitan, they're onto us!
Come on, let's get out of here. Wait, you got the triple Krabby Patty Supreme, right?
Yes, but not now.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you to my patrons on Patreon for supporting this channel. My $5 patrons are Kapitan Sladek, Kidzap, and Chocobird. My $2 patrons are Komida the Prep Cook Demon. If you would like to appear at the end credits of my videos, as well as have early access and exclusive content on Patreon, feel free to hop on over to patreon.com/LTELawrence and give a pledge. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you would like to see my artwork as well, feel free to check out my other platforms like DeviantArt for my entire gallery. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, this is T. Lawrence signing out. Have a good one.